Welcome back everyone to another NRG, and here we are back on the good old Amiga. This is a excellent conversion, or ups, or I don't know, what do we call it when a game has been upped to 16-bit quality? Well, here we are. It's 2007's Yoomp, which was originally on the Atari 8-bit, one of my favourite 8-bit Atari 8-bit games actually, probably my favourite 8-bit game, Atari 8-bit game, full stop. Originally by Uru Mersinskowski originally, and this is the conversion which came hot on the heels of the Commodore 64 version. So there was a Commodore 64 version of this that came after the Atari version, and we finally get a Amiga 16-bit version of this classic trailblazer, fall down your tube or fall along your tube or whatever you want to call it, puzzling action arcadey style game. And very, very key with the music here. This version, however, is quite, I find quite significantly different to the two 8-bit versions as well. There's a lot of enhancements going on, and especially with the game design, the level design, and of course the music. The music is quite different here, and all for the better for it. I mean, the original music on the Atari was wonderful. Let's not go away from it. But we know that the Paula chip can produce some utter magic, and MCH, who is responsible for the music on this, there you go, he's just on the screen, has produced a couple of really lovely tunes on this, really smooth, mellow tunes that just flow with the game. Really nice. It's like the original was more bouncy, more bump, 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 like almost like getting you into a sort of race kind of thing. This has this sort of slickness, this smoothness to it, the music on here, and of course the ball bouncing goes along with the tune like it did in the original. And I love the fact that they've designed the colour of the ball obviously to match the Amiga logo, which is wonderful. Here we go, and it moves wonderfully, silky smooth. Love the scaling effect. It's on the original, it had amazing scaling, very psychedelic on the colours as well. With the Amiga we've got a little bit more leeway, we've given it some more oomph with the colours. And yeah, cool. It's certainly eye-catching, that is for sure, and it takes you a while to get used to the sort of the movement of everything, especially when you're bouncing upside down and everything. This can run on most Amigas. It automatically adjusts its graphic quality depending on what system you run it on. So this is being ran on a 1200, I think I'm running on this on the 1200. But it can be run on the CDTV, the 600, 800 and the 10,000 as well, which is wonderful. It's also got more levels than the original. It's got 27 levels. I think the original had 21 levels, so an extra 6 levels. Fantastic. And like I said, the level design is very different here. The level lengths vary greatly. Some of them are really quite long and some of them are quite short. Say the first couple of levels are quite straightforward, just to get you with the familiarity of the gameplay and everything that's going on. The same aspects that made the original sort of a hallmark are present. So the colour changing, the shade changing, lightening and darkening panels, the shake quake panels. So if you bounce on them, the whole thing quakes. You've also got an extra panel which changes colours momentarily of all the surroundings. Which just realised the star field is really nice in the background there as well. And I think there's about 20 or so different designs of the bounce panels this time, which is much more than the original. So it makes it very varied, very, very, very visually striking. Certainly, and of course you've got your super jump, where you can, if you want to get out of trouble, you can press the jump and you'll do that extra sort of double bounce, and it'll triple bounce of course if you bounce off an arrow, which gives you that super bounce anyway. Fall through the tube and bounce out the other side, which is another aspect of the gameplay in the later levels of course. Yes, and the arrow panels, which make you sort of dart to the side, those, there you go. They're actually, I find those easier to control than the original. They seem to kick quite more on the Atari and Commodore versions. On the Amiga version, like I said, it just runs it has that more smoothness about it. Very smooth, very smooth. And I think this one is probably a little bit more user-friendly in the fact that it introduces you to the stages a little softer. I mean, the later stages are obviously pretty tricky and a lot of ahead planning needed, and plenty of practice to know the layouts of each level. The early levels, you can kind of sort of like get the gist of it. You can bounce between the holes a lot easier as well in this, like boink, like that, for example. Yes. So this is done by Zebtech. I think that's what he calls himself. It's a big new Ross, anyway. That is his name. It's a big new Ross. So he's done a good job on this. So that was that. I think that one was developed on the. That was the Commodore version. Of course, now it's been upped to the Amiga. So good work, sir. Good work. It's very good, and one of my new go-to games on the Amiga. Actually, I was playing this over Christmas. And my son had found we played the original. My son had played the original, and he thought, I'll have a go at that. That looks great. And he was sitting here, and it's nice to know when your 9-year-old son is playing an Amiga game in 2025, well, Christmas 2024. That's for argument's sake, and was absolutely hooked. So there you go. Do like the aspects of this. Negative aspects. Like I said, it does have that smoothness of wonderful, charming music. The movement is absolutely slick. The colour changes. It's very psychedelic, so it might not be for everyone's eyes. It might be a bit on someone's eyes, some people's. But it's got excellent response control as well, as you would expect. The only negative thing I can possibly think about it is that it somehow lacks the charm of the original, which I can't put my finger on. One of those inexplicable things you just can't put your finger on. I mean, it's an excellent game and an excellent effort. It's coded. I completely cocked that up. There, fell into space. And it's an excellent game, but it's just that charming aspect of the original Atari 8-bit is not missing, but it's certainly a little bit devoid. But that is a very minor criticism at the very best. Anyway, this is Yoomp on the Amiga, and it's a cracking game. Always nice to see new games coming out on old platforms. It's one of my favourite things to see, is newer games coming out on old platforms, especially ones which have been converted from an original 8-bit. That's always cool to see. There you go. Cheers! I would recommend you play this game if you like the Amiga, of course, and we'll just generally like great games, because it's a good one. Cheers! Novabug is out of here. I'm gonna fall down. Let me just get to a point where I can just fall. Oh, okay, here we go. No, I'm gonna go over here and go. Ooh, 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 ooh. Hey, Novabug here. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Please support the channel by liking and commenting, and of course subscribing if you haven't already done. If you would like to support me further, please consider joining my Bug Army via Patreon, and also don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Getter, BitChute and Twitch. Thank you everyone for supporting me. Novabug.